Hello and welcome to another episode of Alegria in Kansas City. I'm your host, Fabian Shepard, and we welcome you to today's program where we aim to educate, inform, and inspire. Today we have a fabulous guest, Jennifer Menon Martin. Jennifer is an Overland Park resident who has opened up her home, her front yard, her pantry that she created to individuals who have a need, and we're going to learn about that today. Jennifer, it's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, welcome. And as I said in the opening, that you have a pantry at your home in Overland Park. And you're located in North Overland Park, that's right?
Correct, right off of 71st to Metcalf.
Very close to the busiest intersection that I've seen in a long time. In fact, the day I met you many years ago, there was an accident at that intersection at 71st and Metcalf, which I understand unfortunately happens there a lot.
Yes, unfortunately that's not an unusual occurrence. So being 5 houses away from that intersection, we see a lot of traffic. And fortunately, we also see a lot of people that travel by and have a chance to slow down and look at our pantry because they are tied up in traffic.
And like we talked about those accidents there, it indicates there's heavy traffic, and so your pantry is in a perfect location. Now, let me describe this to folks at home. What you have is, this is almost like one of those help yourself libraries, but inside, rather than books, you have placed foods. And your husband has done something really neat. I like what he's done, and we're going to show this to people at home later. He's dug a trench there, installed the conduit so that he's got electricity running, so it's both lighted, and then you have a refrigerator there, so you have the stuff that needs to be kept cold, and then the ambient temperature stuff in the pantry. Is that correct?
That's correct. During the summer we have an LED bulb, but then in the winter we actually put in a halogen bulb of about 50 to 75 watts so that the canned goods do not freeze.
Outstanding, outstanding. Now, I want to talk about your husband because he's a colorful personality. He's a great guy, very jovial. I got on with him well. How long have you been married, first of all?
We have been married 7 years.
Okay.
Adam is a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. And fortunately for me, he's great with honeydew lists.
And I've seen some of the results of his honeydew work. He's exceptional. What was your husband's idea or thought when you said you had this idea?
He's always been very supportive of anything I've wanted to try. When COVID started, we started with a tiny library in April, and it was very well received by the neighborhood. And as COVID progressed, I told him, I said, I really think we need to do something more. So one day he was at work and I was rummaging around the backyard, and I called him. I said, hey, have you got any plans for this plywood back here? And he goes, no. I said, cool, mine. So he came home and there was already a box built. And he's like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? And I told him my idea, and he said, okay. He said, I'll help you. And he did. He helped me get the supports put in and put the doors on, put the roof on. So
you make a great team.
We do. We complement each other.
You know, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You get to have fun working on your ideas and then see them come to fruition. So, a tiny pantry. Had you heard of it somewhere else before, or did you just get the inspiration?
Well, there actually is a organization. It's called tinypantry.org. I had not heard of it. I just actually joined a couple of days ago. But it is a national movement. But this is the only tiny pantry at the time, and we actually installed this on the 5th of September of 2020 that was in the area. Since then, there have been tiny pantries popping up at area churches. One of our neighbors at 87th and Hemlock has put up a tiny pantry there. So we are currently trying to get a better handle on the marketing for this tiny pantry movement, so that we can actually make it something that is substantial and nationwide and in every neighborhood, so that everybody understands what it takes to become a steward of a tiny pantry. It's not
and
just
this is so
building
great.
the box.
There's a lot of need out there. Obviously, when you have more of them popping up, that indicates the need is greater than one might expect.
Correct. There was a tremendous amount of need before COVID, and COVID has just kind of escalated that. Right now, our tiny pantry serves about 20 families. Multiple families have got multiple children, and we know of at least 3 to 4 recipients that are actually living out of their vehicles. So the tiny pantry is vital to their survival.
And in times when we have COVID limited services, I would guess that living out of a vehicle is even more of a challenge nowadays.
Correct. So we actually have now incorporated not only food, but also some paper products like toilet paper and paper towels and personal hygiene for shampoo and razors and soap, so that you can go to a Quick Trip and get cleaned up, or you can find an overnight place somewhere where you can actually care for yourself as well as feed yourself.
And you've gotten to meet some of these people, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but has the experience been rewarding for you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have lived most of my life in Johnson County. And when we moved to North Johnson County 9 years ago, I really didn't know anybody. The people that I bought the house from were the original owners. The house was built in 1955. Everybody knew the Krauses, but they didn't know anything about the Men and Parker people. And when we started, it was just my husband and I, and we tried to sustain the pantry for about 2 weeks. And at that point, I told my husband, I said, I think we're going to go bankrupt. We can't do this. And he said, well, I think it's about time for you to kind of reach out to social media. So started with Facebook, didn't really get a whole lot, and then somebody told me about the Nextdoor app. So I got the Nextdoor app, and I started posting about the tiny pantry, and it was incredible. We were not just serving the recipients, but it turned out we were serving the donors as well. It gave them a purpose during COVID. So we were able to not only provide for food and personal hygiene, but people started donating socks and mittens and gloves and hats. They would have donated mattresses, but I was like, oh, there's a limit. So
Where are you going to store them?
Exactly. But we have just incredible people that are, a lot of them are retired, although a lot of them are like we are, they're still working full time, and they're taking their time. We have one gentleman that is a driver for the American Red Cross Bloodmobile. And we had a recipient that came by. She was rail thin but very pregnant and was at the pantry, and I said, hey, do you need anything in particular? And she goes, well, I'm looking for some plates and some cups. I'm like, really? Let me work on that. So I got on my Nextdoor app and I said, we have a recipient that just got a new apartment, has nothing, and is looking for some plates and cups. And within 2 hours, I had an entire set of dishes, an entire set of Tupperware, an entire set of baking dishes. Someone had offered a love seat, and the gentleman that drives had a microwave. And so I asked him, I said, well, the love seat is in another part of town. And he says, say no more. I've got a buddy. I will contact him. You get the address. So I contacted the individual because the love seat was from another app called Buy Nothing. And I told the individual who it was for. And she said, oh, tell him to come. Here's my address. I'll hunt around the house, see if I've got anything else. And so this donor with his microwave also showed up with a TV and a TV stand, took his buddy, went over, got the love seat, plus a chair, plus I have no idea what, took it to the recipient's apartment, and then between them, they also shelled out about $100 in cash and multiple gift cards that they had received through their business connections. He said, we made her cry. I'm like,
that is a fantastic story. And you mentioned during COVID was when this all happened, and people were looking. We had the executive director of the Johnson County Mental Health Department, Tim DeWeese, here, and he talked about social distancing and how unnatural that is. I think that that's probably what you experienced there. People had the need to be around people, and they needed some joy in their lives because of the COVID situation. All the news was so depressing at the time. So that's refreshing to know that the outpouring of love and compassion there exists. And we've always known that Johnson County, like you said, you've lived there your life, and we've always known that Johnson County's been that type of place to live. I just think it's fantastic that the citizens of Overland Park responded that way.
They were incredible. We have individuals that have got talents with social media that can put together benefits for other people. We have got people that work for the school district that have been able to help bring food in. We have individuals that, like I said, have vehicles that can transport. We have individuals that own warehouses that can bring us items. So we've been touched by an incredible community that is extremely diverse and extremely talented. The hats and gloves that we got at Christmas, these were handmade. They, you know, and we had people wanting to adopt families. They brought in Christmas gifts for all the children. You know, I had to go through and find out all the names and all the ages. That became an adventure, but we ended up providing Christmas for 16 children.
But what a fun adventure that must have been.
It was.
I'm sure it did your heart a lot of good. And so tell me more about this Tiny Pantry Network, because as you indicated, this is something across America.
It is.
And you were just the first in Overland Park that you know of.
Well, I was the first, at least in our neighborhood. Now, there may have been tiny pantries associated with some of the area churches.
Sure.
But I was definitely the first one in our neighborhood. And like I said, then right after that, the one at 87th and Hemlock came about. And there have been some, I guess, in Waldo. The problem
so now, do all of you network together and have meetings about what you're doing or any process improvement type?
No, and that's where I really think we need to have some sort of marketing done. It would be really nice if you go on the tinypantry.org website, it'll talk about how to build a pantry. But a lot of the things that I have learned with doing the pantry, they don't really discuss. And I think that would be really helpful to say, you know, people really do like these personal hygiene kits. People really do not like bulk oatmeal. So as you kind of go through and you learn what is working for your community, I think it would be great to be able to share that with other community stewards and say, hey, this is what works, just like with the light bulbs. You know, it's really hard for people to eat frozen green beans out of a can.
Right. So there's a little bit of discovery involved as this process goes along. And we're going to learn more about that, and we're going to learn more about this network and some of your experiences when we come back after the break. And we'll be right back after this break on Alegria in Kansas City with our friend Jennifer Menon Parker.
Why did the onion cry? I don't know. Why did the onion cry? 'Cause he cut himself. I've got one. Why was the Cyclops such a good teacher? I don't know. Why was the Cyclops such a good teacher? Because he only had one pupil.
Hello, and we're back to Alegria in Kansas City with our host today, Jennifer Menon Parker. And Jennifer is telling us about her tiny pantry that she created on her front lawn in Overland Park. Now, Jennifer, before we went to break, you were talking a little bit about the Tiny Pantry Network, which you just discovered a couple days ago. Do you want to tell us how that happened?
Sure. My husband loves to get on the internet, and he was Googling around 2 nights ago, and he goes, hey, did you know that there's a tinypantry.org? And I said, no, but apparently there is. And so it is a nationwide movement to try and feed the communities, the families, the friends, the neighbors that are in such need right now. And now I'm excited that we are now, as Parker's Pantry, part of that network.
So that's amazing to me, because we have so many groups that do this type of outreach, But it appears it's not enough, even with what's going on out. I mean, I see the Salvation Army doing things, as you mentioned before, local churches, and then there's scout groups and all sorts of entities like that, and there's still an unfulfilled need.
Well, we have a unique niche because not everybody that uses a pantry feels comfortable acknowledging that usage. And so we give them that security of being able to come at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and nobody knows that you're there. Your identity is still protected. And so we can have them here 24/7 getting whatever it is that they need and not having to worry about people asking questions or interrogating them or trying to get them to join something in order to get what they need. And with the tiny pantry, at least ours, we're open 24/7. So we're open during Christmas. We're open at 3 o'clock in the morning. A lot of churches have got defined times because they have to have someone there to man it.
Right.
We don't have that.
You live
because
there.
I'm there all the time
Right,
manning.
right.
Our tiny pantry gets filled 3 to 4 to 5 times a day, depending on how much need is in a given day.
That is something that I found really, really neat when I was talking to you, because when I was in your driveway, you were telling me about filling this, and the immediate thought in my mind was, wow, I mean, they're not an endless pile of money here, so they've got to have help. And then when you told me that some people, in fact, on this show, you said that you reached out, but then other people just of their own volition heard about it and started placing items in there.
They do. Most of the time, they will actually place the items on our porch.
Okay.
And then I will actually put them out. We have now gotten a bedroom converted into a pantry for the pantry. Because people don't always know what to donate, but they want to help. So I could probably start my own green bean factory.
A lot of green beans.
A lot of green beans, a lot of dried beans. But man cannot live by beans alone. So that's why I started with the Nextdoor app, telling people, hey, we need toothpaste, we need boxed milk, we need cereal, we need, in fact, the latest was canned meat. I said, we currently have got a meatless Monday, plus every other day of the week, because we are totally out. And once again, neighbors stepped up, and I was fielding donations all day today.
Wow, I love it, fulfilling that need. And yeah, I was surprised that you had toilet paper in there, which during the pandemic, it was hard enough for some families to get it. Imagine someone without means.
Well, and somebody said that. They were like, hey, you got toilet paper. I don't have any toilet paper. Like, no, can't take my toilet paper.
So you've brought some notes and letters here. Would you mind, you've got this big purple one. May we see what that says?
Absolutely. This one was from one of our recipients, or our donors' children. Says, may these few items bring you some joy and a smile. This is from Ella. She was age 12.
I love it.
She donated some clothing and some shoes and some toys for the Christmas children.
So children helping children, I like
Exactly.
that. And what else do we have?
Well,
I see this one with the pretty pen.
this one,
Yes.
this was actually from one of our recipients. This is when she first came to us. It says, I was wondering if you can help with utilities or rent or anything, or clothes or toys, other things like dishwashing detergent, dryer sheets, goldfish, granola. I happen to actually know this recipient. She is a mother of 5. All the children are under the age of 7, and they are all living out of a van. And that, unfortunately, is not unusual for some of our recipients.
Yeah, it's hard to get an apartment when you don't have a job. And
Right.
if you've got 5 children, it's probably tough to have a job.
Correct.
Because no job in the world is going to help that individual pay for those children in daycare.
Right. And her newest one is now 6 months old.
Oh, heaven's sake.
So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and it's not unusual for a lot of our recipients to be migratory from place to place, to house, to couch surfing, to living in vehicles, and then we also have the other set of recipients that have a home, but they have a choice. They either pay the rent or they feed themselves. So there's just not enough to get through. And
understand,
with minimum
yes.
wage, and especially in Johnson County, you can't afford to live.
No. Minimum wage isn't going to cut it in Johnson County.
No, it's not.
What else do we have here?
This was actually a thank you from one of our neighbors, one of our donors. It says, "Dear friend and fellow house church member, told us of your needs for your services of this cold weather items. So glad she reminded us to serve. We thank God for your generous spirit. May He bless you with joy and trust in Him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart." Proverbs 3:5. Always love. And
then their name is there. And so, like you said, the one recipient, the mother of 5. And so some of these other folks you've met also.
I have. There is a woman that comes fairly regularly. She actually works at our local grocery store, but she comes and shops for her disabled brother. And the one thing that he really loves is coffee. And so at Christmas time, again, the community went together, got him one of those little individual Keurigs, because every once in a while I'll have somebody donate an entire box of Keurigs for the coffee. And if you're homeless, you probably don't have a Keurig.
Right.
But I happen to know this individual does have one because we bought him one. So whenever I get Keurig coffee, I'm calling
got a
up
place to send
the
it.
individual saying, "Hey, come get this for your brother."
Right. The individual living in a vehicle isn't going to benefit from the Keurig, but
Right.
there are other things that might help that person.
Right. We have, there have been several times that the community has donated Quick Trip gift cards so that they've got gas to get from place to place. Sometimes they'll donate hand warmers, foot warmers, because maybe they work construction or whatever, and the clothing that they're wearing is not adequate for what they're doing. I've seen several recipients in this harsh winter wearing a very thin jacket and flip-flops, working, and coming to the pantry. So the need is there, and the fear is great because they don't know how to contact these agencies. They're fearful of these agencies, that they'll be stigmatized or judged, and this is a safe environment for them. We don't judge, we don't ask questions other than, have you got everything you need? Do you need anything else? And I've actually told several of them, if you need something special, put it in my mailbox and we'll see. We actually got a note from a recipient a few months ago that was shopping for a homeless sister and her friends. And it was a 4-page note, and it was, these are the things that we need. And one of them was a can opener. I had not even thought in my little Johnson County bubble that I would put a can opener out there.
Right,
But when
right.
you realize that most of the stuff that is donated
All this
is
canned
canned,
food and no
you
way to
can't get
open it.
Exactly. So can openers and shampoo and toilet paper, and a lot of these items were actually mentioned in this note, and it was very educational for me that, this is what they actually need. And so I kind of started changing what it is that we have in the pantry to meet those needs.
Some toiletries and things of that nature. Okay, so can you tell me about an experience you had where someone that you met rather than reading a note and you had face-to-face encounter with them?
We had a young lady right at the beginning of when we built the pantry that had a family member that had been incarcerated, and she was the caretaker of the children. And she's like, my income was adequate when it was just myself, but now I've got all these kids. And so that's when we started looking into other items like diapers. One of my coworkers, actually, gentleman whose wife Senator Baumgardner's husband,
sure.
Brian, came.
Molly Baumgardner, senator from Southern Overland Park and that area.
And they brought me cases of diapers in every age level.
Oh, I love it.
And it was wonderful, and the recipients were thrilled. But one of the recipients actually asked, "Can I take it out of the box? It won't fit in the car."
Oh,
So,
you know what? That's a good problem to have.
yeah.
That's
Well,
a great problem.
yes and no, because she couldn't fit it in because that's what she was living in.
No.
So, but I mean, we've had tremendous outpouring for these people, and the recipients have been amazing. I went into the pantry one time, and there was a little carnation just sitting in there. Now, I took that as my thank you, and I shared that, and the next door donors were thrilled to see that. And I have little pockets in the sides of the pantry that I put like resources for like 211 and recipes, etc. And the last couple of weeks I've gone in and opened up the pantry, and there's been change left in those pockets.
Oh, the gratitude.
Someone is trying to.
They don't have much, but they're
going to pay for it.
Expressing gratitude. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Wow. So before we get out of this, I want you to share with the folks at home anything that you can share with them. What's the big takeaway from this for you? This is an inspirational show. So and this is, I love this story. I mean, this is fantastic.
I think the biggest thing is you don't know your neighbors. You might think you know your neighbors, but they may be hurting, they may be in need, and they may be really intimidated to reach out. So just do the right thing. You know, if you have extra food, take it to the pantries. If you know someone's yard is looking overgrown, maybe go over and say, hey, can I help you mow it? Or, you know, they may have a personal crisis and they can't get to everything that needs to be done. So if you just kind of look outside your own personal four walls at the neighbors and say, hey, how can I help you? I think we would have a much better community if everyone would do that.
Well, I think the people of Overland Park certainly have a much better community thanks to you and your husband and this pantry. It's fantastic. And, you know, the one caveat I take away from this, because we never know the people that we encounter, the people that we meet. We have, you know, interactions, but we don't really get to know them unless they become personal friends. And I met you before, and I didn't know much about you. And I almost feel like I know you so much now. And I just think it's fantastic that I knew you as a college professor, anatomy and physiology, which I know nothing about. I know I have 2 hands and 2 feet. That's about as far as it goes. But, you know, individuals are so much deeper than what we experience and just the encounters that we have regularly. So this is fantastic. Thank you for what you do for the community of Overland Park. And I know you have some letters and things that people have left with you. May we see those?
Yes. I keep them all. I keep all the thank you notes because this kind of reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
May I see? This is amazing. And it even has weight. This is what people who are getting the help leave behind. Because whether you know it or not, these people are grateful for what's being done for them because they care as much as people care for them. And so it's important in our community that we remember that. And with that, we close another episode of Alegria in Kansas City. I'm your host, Fabian Shepard. Special thanks to our guests, Jennifer Menon Parker. And I want to remind you that Alegria in Kansas City is brought to you by Televida, a production of Exo Films.